This week on Under Review, we have a lot to cover. James Cook and the Buffalo Bills have reached a very long anticipated contract extension. There is an injury report that we have to cover, and there is a preseason game occurring this weekend with plenty of players that we are keeping a close eye on. The boom arm is back in action. The vibes are at an all-time high, and I thank each and every one of you for tuning in to this week's episode of Under Review. Without further ado, friends, let's go.
Previous play will go under review.
Citizens of Earth, I appreciate each and every single one of you watching or listening to this week's episode of Under Review. And as I mentioned in the revived intro format that I've actually wanted to bring back for quite a long time, there's plenty to discuss tonight. And when I say we, at least I said we in the intro, I never just mean me, friends. I have a returning guest of the show, someone who I love speaking to, someone whose insight is simply incredible when it comes to really anything, but especially football. And that person is the one, the only, the blue ethereal floating orb with the meanest Wario impression in the tri-state area, Mr. Bruce Nolan, known as the stew chef, deliverer of pie, second of his name. How you doing tonight, Bruce?
You know, it's always good to know that the person you're talking to listens to the show, because let's be honest, there's a lot of content and not all content creators get to all content creators. It's just not the way it is. But I got to be honest, I count it among my greatest blessings in the space that there are lots of content creators who listen to my show. Like I didn't want to put this in the profile because it sounds kind of narcissistic, but for a second I thought your favorite content creator's favorite content creator. Like I'd put that in my bio, but
yeah,
no, I didn't want to do that. I don't want to shine light. It seems egotistical. I don't want to do that. I was like, no, that's bad. But yeah, I'm glad you listened, and you listened on Thursday, your day one, Bruce Nolan listener.
Yeah. Bruce, I love your show. And I'll admit, there are plenty of busy weeks I have where I unfortunately have to miss it, whether it's when it drops, I don't get the chance to listen. But really what sold me was you do a mean Wario impression. And I'm like, I need to see if he actually does this. Cause this could be a great ploy by him to get me to just listen, which it would never not be worth it to listen to your show. I never want it to sound like it isn't. But if you're going to do a Wario impression, you got me sold, man. Like I'm a Nintendo truther. I grew up. One of my all-time favorite games is Wario World. So I'm bought in. And you did one and it was masterful. And we don't have to do it right now, Bruce. We got Bill stuff to talk about, but maybe this episode I can get another Wario impression out of you if you're feeling so kind.
You felt good about it then?
I felt good about it. I felt good about the Wario impression. It was a quality Wario. Good, I felt a honest critique though. I felt like you were holding a little bit back, just a smidge. I feel like we could really
unleash. I mean, I try and get a little. You try and just not go too far over the top, especially with with the impressions in general. It's because sometimes people lean into it a little bit too much. It's almost like it's like when you're doing a Bill Clinton impression, right? So you're doing a Bill Clinton impression, you're pulling it back all the way in the back of your throat, and you're going, I don't have sexual relations with that woman.
Yeah.
But the point is, if you pull it too far, then it becomes like Foghorn Leghorn. You know what I mean?
Oh, so yeah.
That's always the worry. The worry is you're going to overshoot Wario, right? You're going to overshoot all the things, and you end up with a bad. For example, you overshoot Kermit the Frog. What do you end up with? Marvin the Martian. Right? That's what happens. So you didn't want to overshoot Wario. So maybe I was holding back a little bit, but it's good. It's a good reason.
Yeah, I understand that. That's very valid to say. And listen, the Wario is a very delicate impression. You go a little too far, like you said. It's like a spectrum of deep voice, raspy cartoon characters. If you don't nail the Wario, you're just going to sound like really any other character who's similar. So I appreciate that thought, but it was still a very good impression. I don't want it to come off that it wasn't. And I bet you guys have noticed already. The tagline tonight is Joe Main Lettuce, because lettuce is green, folks. And you know what else is green, Bruce?
Money.
Money. Money is green. Money talks, and it has a beautiful, lush hue of green. And you could ask Bills running back James Cook, who just inked a contract extension with the Buffalo Bills for 4 years, 48 million. And what seemed to be a 12 AAV seems actually to be 11 and a half. So when they were revealing some of the details to this contract, it's actually even, in my opinion, a smidge more favorable for the Buffalo Bills. But Bruce, this was obviously a heavily anticipated extension. The drama had been mounting really since the season had ended. And I was here kind of saying, I don't think it's going to happen just for a couple reasons. One, we haven't seen Brandon Beane give a contract extension to a running back, nor give significant money to a running back. It's either been holistic in the draft or these 1 year rentals / players that keep coming back on 1 year deals that are super team friendly. But he broke the mold and did something we haven't seen him do, and he paid a running back. But I think there is a very good argument to make that James Cook did deserve this contract extension just for the value he brings to this offense and how leaned on he was, especially down the stretch and in their final playoff game. But Bruce, I do want to ask you, I mean, did you think that this extension was going to happen first? First question. And secondly, what do you think about the deal? Do you like it? Do you not like it? I mean, I want to hear your thoughts on this, even though I might know the answer, because again, watch your episode.
I didn't think it was going to happen. I thought there was a chance it might have happened at the end of the year, because running backs are one of those scenarios where it's a very volatile position, right? One ACL injury, you burn basically 2 years of a running back's prime, which is a very short prime to begin with. So I was thinking maybe procrastination and, might be the way to go for Brandon Beane when it comes to this one. When it comes to the actual deal, the fact that it's an essentially $11.5 million a year deal and putting it right around the Kyron Williams deal makes sense to me from a monetary standpoint. I would not have done it. I have said this before. I would not have done it. And somebody asked me, like, what number would you have been like, at what number would you have done it? I said, no number that he would have accepted. Right. Like, so let's assume for a second that Brandon Beane is not the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. Bruce Nolan is the general manager of the Buffalo Bills. Right. And they come to me to negotiate a contract extension. I would tell them the truth. And I would say, we're not going to re-sign you for any number that you would be comfortable with. Like, yeah, I'll offer you $3 million a year. You're not going to take it because that's insulting. And I get that. That's cool. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to offer you that money. And then I'm going to promise not to tag you so that you can I'm not going to tag you. You can walk free. That's the deal. Right. I know you want a bunch of money. I don't have any intent to do it, but I also don't intend to stop you from going out and getting that money. So I'm not going to do this in bad faith. I'm just going to tell you, listen, you're not in our plans after this year. And if he gets upset, he gets upset like that. And that's just the way it works. So
yeah,
I want Connor McGovern to come back. I want Osiris Torrance to come back, and we live in a limited resource environment. And so I'm not saying that because you sign James Cook, you can't. I'm saying because you sign James Cook, the probability is lower now that you can sign those two. That's just the way it works. So for me, I don't look at this deal as like a bad deal. Like, I'm not like up in arms about it. I'm not like, it's not like those draft picks that you're just like, I just don't like that player that much. I didn't have them rated. Great example, right? I did not have a high grade on Keon Coleman. I had a late day 2, early day 3-ish grade on Keon Coleman, right? I thought he was a perfectly fine possession receiver who could potentially give you 700-800 yards a year as a possession yak, quality hands guy. I compared him to Mohamed Sanu, right? When they drafted him at the top of the second round instead of Lad McConkey, I was not pleased. Right.
I remember this.
That's not the way I feel about this. I don't feel that strongly negatively about this deal because I get it. Like, I understand why it would have happened. If you're Brandon Beane and you're in this specific spot where you're at right now, and you think that there's a chance that Josh Allen's prime is going to be gone in 3 or 4 years. I mean, do you really want a good player to walk right now? It's like, is now the right time to let a good player walk? Like, I feel like probably not. And so there's a big difference between, in my opinion, going like all in, right? Trading for Von Miller, sorry, not trading, but signing Von Miller to a massive deal, or going out and trading for Stephon. Like, these are all in type moves. These are chips to the middle of the table moves. Having a player like James Cook walk away from your organization isn't indicative of a team that's trying to win it all right now and thinks they're close. So I get it. Like, I understand why he did it. Like, that doesn't mean I would have done it, because my philosophy is be as good as you can for as long as you can, hope you get lucky. Like, that's the Bruceism, right? So I can simultaneously say I wouldn't have done it, and then also say I totally understand why he did it, and then also say I don't think the contract is that bad
Yeah.
for relative to market.
I think those are valid points. And back when the conversation first came up about a potential Cook extension, I was very heavily on board with the side that unless it's a reasonable deal, I'm all for letting him test the market and either letting him come back on a favorable deal or letting him walk and go get paid by a team that probably has ample cap space, the type of team that either has the cap to pay a running back more than you think he's potentially worth based on production, or is just a running back away, similar to kind of what the Eagles did with Saquon Barkley, which, again, not saying they're the same player at all, but the Eagles really were just a running back away. I mean, they still had a great draft and got some great young defensive talent, but for that offense, that line, the skill position players there, they were a running back away from truly taking it a step further, and they did. But in the case of the Bills, I was cool with Cook potentially moving on. What I think happened was, as time progressed, and the conversations began with him and the organization, I warmed up to the idea a little bit more, only because I think that James Cook, when you talk about the true identity of this offense right now, and this is not to say that the Bills can't throw. This is not to say that Josh Allen can't do it without him. But when I think of what this Bills offense has really made themselves out to be over the past 2 seasons, since Joe Brady took over full time, since they shifted the type of runs they're attacking defenses with, since they really added a nasty factor, James Cook has been a constant throughout that metamorphosis for this offense and has been, in my opinion, when you take out Josh Allen and obviously the offensive line, because I think if you were to ask me who my actual tops would be for this offense, it's that structure. James Cook's at the forefront. I would put him above Dalton Kincaid. I would put him above any of the receivers. I put him above really any other player that's not named Josh Allen, Deion Dawkins, and probably Connor McGovern as my third. I think that he has been a vital asset to this offense. He's been consistent. And even though there are deficiencies in his game that I do think keep me from saying he was ever worth 15 million, 20 million a year, because I never thought that. I thought he was valuable enough for this offense to be worth something in the range of, again, 10 to 12 million, with 13, me considering that an overpay, but understanding if the Bills did it. And what I think you got here, whether you are pro running back pay, whether you are not, is the retention of a very valuable asset to this offense, one that I think can help this team achieve the goals they've set out for themselves, which is to win a Super Bowl, which is the only seemingly thing they have left to do. They've seemed to prove everything else. And I think what they have done is they've allowed themselves to maintain their identity on offense. Not to say that another running back couldn't, but it's so much better when you have someone who's familiar with what you're running offensively, schematically, and can complement it. I feel like while, yes, running back contracts can be bad, they can age poorly. You can look at his brother as an example of that. Dalvin's really didn't pay dividends the way Minnesota had hoped. I can understand why they did it. And I think 11.5 million per year is a perfectly fair deal. It puts him underneath Alvin Kamara. It technically puts him underneath Kyron Williams, or actually, no, I think it puts him right above Kyron. Kyron got 11 on the nose, but he's in that like second tier running back market. And I think that that's an okay price to pay. And if he stays healthy, or if he develops even further, which is the thing the Bills always hope for with these types of deals, as in if James Cook becomes a better pass blocker, or if even the receiving out of the backfield component becomes even better than it's been in the past, I think it's even a value, despite it being a market, or despite it being a contract for running backs, which is a very volatile market. So I definitely understand the point you have, because it is a risk with running backs specifically, because again, one bad break and you're not going to see him for half of his contract life cycle. And you don't even know if he'd be the same player if he comes back. But he's been, knock on wood, a mostly durable player. He's been, again, a cog in this machine and someone that I'm very comfortable paying that much money to. And as far as the future extensions that you referred to, Bruce, I do not like the fact that it puts McGovern's extension and potentially like an Osiris Torrance extension at jeopardy. But knowing Brandon Beane, there are other levers to pull. There are other options in contracts that he has on the team or players he could potentially move on from or restructure to open up that money to give these extensions to their offensive linemen. And if someone's got to walk on this offensive line, and that happens to be Connor McGovern, I think they have contingency plans, but also I feel good about Aaron Cromer being the guy in the room if they run into that situation, to a point where I feel more comfortable with this extension happening for James Cook because I do trust that much in Aaron Cromer to figure it out if he has to. But we don't know if that'll be the case. And that's really where I'm at on it. Bruce, any more thoughts on this before we move on?
No, I think you covered it.
Beautiful. All right. Well, let's move on to our next point. And I love when I have you on, Bruce, because you are straight to the point. And anytime we got to pivot topics, it's just, no, I don't got anything else to say. Hell yeah, let's go. All right. But no, I appreciate it. And I want to talk about the injury report because I kind of been talking about this each week on this show, Bruce, because this is a conversation that I think gets simultaneously overblown, but also like not talked about enough in certain ways when we get to this point in the offseason every single year. The overblown component for me, though, outweighs the other because I feel like we see a lot of names on a list and we get really paranoid and we get really worried about the duration of the year. And I distinctly remember last year, even later in August, where the injury list was quite long. And by week one, we had most of the personnel back, save for a couple people. Now, you see Deion Dawkins this week go down. A few of the receivers are on the injury report, including Elijah Moore, Terrell Shavers. And it's not optimal, but also it's not something I am personally worrying about too much. Now, I want to ask you, because I'm very interested to hear your take on this. I mean, what are your thoughts on where the Bills stand with their injury report right now? And what are you, assuming this is it, assuming this is the list and we don't get any new people, knock on wood, what is your, like, I guess, prediction for what week one looks like as far as the health of this roster?
I think that there's a very reasonable chance Maxwell Hairston is not active for the first 6 weeks. Like, I think that there's a chance. I think that they don't want to risk that. I don't think they want to deal with it right now. I think that really that's the biggest piece of this. I think if there is a player that sticks out to me as a, hey, I don't think this is a guy, because we talk about defensive line. Okay, I'm going to pivot for a second. We talk about defensive line a lot and the numbers and the tough decisions they have to make. Defensive backfield sneaky like that too. Like, I don't know if you've done a 53-man roster projection yet, Joe, but when you go to do it, you're like, whoa, like I have to put players and I have to cut them and I don't love it.
Yeah. Real quick before you continue, I apologize. I've been doing it for like the past week and constantly modifying it. This is the hardest one I've done while I've been at Cover One. It is very difficult to figure this out. I don't think I'm going to be right, and I'm still going to do an episode on it. So fair warning.
Right. So for me, the thing that sticks out is that I think that they're going to take the opportunity and go, we're comfortable with our defensive back depth. We're going to go ahead and put Hairston on, we're going to put him on hold for 6 weeks and we'll see him later. And I think that's a reasonable possibility. I mean, LCL injuries are tricky, and defensive backs of all the positions, you can make an argument that defensive back is the one position where you can really tell if someone's a half a step slow. Like the half a step is what separates, Darrell Revis from Prince Amukamara. Like that's a half a step. So for me, I think that that's the player when it sticks out to me on the injury report. That's the player that I think they're just going to take the opportunity. Hey, we feel good about this defensive backfield. We're going to put him on the shelf. That'll make our 53-man roster a little bit easier.
So I love that point really about Hairston specifically, because he was someone I did want to talk about.
Yeah.
I do think they have, I don't want to call it a luxury because that's not the right word, because I think outside of Benford, there are a lot of questions about this cornerback room. But what I will say is if there's anything I can trust McDermott and really this coaching staff with, it's getting at the very least serviceable enough play from their cornerback room to be able to survive and kind of hold the bleeding. But again, Max Hairston's a rookie. You don't even know what you were going to get with him. So I guess it's fair to say that I would be more comfortable with not rushing him if he's not 100%. And I am totally comfortable with the Bills putting him on the IR for that reason if they have to, depending on how he recovers. I feel like he missed valuable reps in camp too, things that he really needed while he was kind of in that 1-2 race with Trey White. And therefore, I think the better thing for him is to get to 100%, where once you get to that middle point of the season where there are a mix of, favorable quote unquote games, obviously we're not going to know that till the season starts, but just looking at the schedule right now, I feel better about trotting him out there when he's ready and not putting him out there and still recovering from a bum knee and either getting really bad play from him and messing with his confidence, or worse, hurting him and not having him for longer term. So with that, I get it. And I mean, like, as far as the rest of the injury list goes, I'm not overly concerned with really anyone. I would say this though. The one thing that I do think we talk about too on the other side of the conversation, when it's, well, people don't talk about it enough, it's when those names are off the list, but how effective are those names when they actually come back? Because we've just been talking about Hairston and his effectiveness if he comes back. And I really pointed at Khalil Shakir. And I don't want to put Khalil Shakir in the IR, and I don't think they're going to. They've said he's going to be ready for week one, but sprains are very tough. I mean, depending on the severity, it's the type of injury that can really limit you. And for someone like Khalil Shakir, their best slot option, someone who is constantly cutting and making quick pivots with his feet and bending with his ankles, it's not an easy injury to work back from. And it's certainly not an easy injury to play with. And you have to ask the question, is it even more of a disservice to put Khalil Shakir out there if he's not fully recovered from this injury week one? And if they do, I mean, do you expect the same production? Do you expect the same, really anything from him? Or do you think it would take a few weeks? And that's what I'm keeping an eye out for too. And when I look at the whole list, I'm not overly concerned. I mean, Deion Dawkins' reaction the other day sounded like he was going to be fine, and maybe it's just precautionary or something minor. I think Curtis Samuel is ramping back up. Terrell Shavers, there wasn't really much detail, but I don't think his is too bad. Otherwise, we probably would have heard something more on him. But Shakir is the one I'm really watching out for too, because like Hairston, if he's not 100%, I just don't know if he's going to be as effective as he could possibly be. He did have a similar injury last year, but 4 to 6 weeks, I think it's the same ankle, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just a little worried about it, and I would like to see or be proven wrong by week one. Or if they have to, if there's a different option like Curtis Samuel, who's healthy enough to man that role for him while he's recovering, to do so, because your first game of the year is the ultimate test as it is. It's the team that you just beat in the divisional round. It is an insanely difficult ask to have an unhealthy player go out there and be his usual self. So I feel like for this injury conversation, I'm hoping that we get good news as the weeks ramp up. One final thing I want to mention on it, Bruce, and I want to turn this back to you because, again, briefly, I've heard it from you and I've seen you tweet about it and I've seen just this conversation. But Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp, what is I know we just talked about the DB room, but just a little more detail. I mean, the concern level for you with these two at this point, now just starting to get reps on the field, albeit limited ones. Are you at a 10, a 6, a 3 as far as your worry level for these two being ready to go for week one and being ready to answer the bell?
I live perpetually at about a 6.5.
Okay.
Like just all the time, just in general. Like we're not even talking about the Bills now. We're just talking about perpetual status of Bruce. I live my entire life slightly worried about everything all the time.
Oh, yeah.
So nothing really. Listen, the sun could be shining and I could be on a beach with a Mai Tai and it would still be 6.5. That's just the way it goes for me. So I am consistently 6.5. And I think the point that you made that I think is valuable is that just because you're back doesn't mean you're back.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen this. I mean, think about this. But what happens is we only see it in, this is an entire time. I could do an entire Bruce exclusive topic on this. I'm not going to, but I could. The idea that we only ever see the impact of an injury in its entirety in retrospect. Do you remember the Ed Oliver year where he had a high ankle sprain? He was off to a good start, had a high ankle sprain.
Divisional round year against the Bengals, Bruce?
We're like, I think that was that year, yeah.
Yeah.
And he comes back and he's just not the same player. And we're all like, hey, what's wrong with Ed Oliver? By the end of the year, you're like, man, that ankle injury really affected him more than we thought. But the second he came back, we were like, oh, sweet, Ed Oliver's back. Just because he's back doesn't mean he's back.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with Khalil Shakir. It's the same thing with Maxwell Hairston. Like, this is the reason why I don't think you just have to temper expectations for both players now because of the effects that lingering injuries can have. Your strength and conditioning staff is not primarily focused on preventing injuries because injuries prevention is mostly a random occurrence thing. They are about managing injuries and preventing them from being worse. And so the fact that you can operate at 70% effectiveness is a testament to your own ability, the coaching staff's ability to manage your workload, and the training staff's ability to make sure that you're getting your workload managed as well. But the fact that you're at 70 to begin with is because you previously had an injury. You're now diminished capacity because of that. So I think I don't want to get all like really pessimistic and say, oh, it casts a dark shadow, but it kind of does. It sort of casts a dark shadow over those two players for at least the next couple of months.
Yeah. Man, I'm sad now. No, I'm just kidding. But I think with just going back to Shakir before we touch upon the safeties again, the one thing that does give me a little bit of hope though is for an injury like that to occur at this time of year, you do get kind of the luxury of the team saying we're being a little more precautious and being a little more mindful of like not pushing him back too far, getting him, I guess, in the fray too quickly. And maybe that 4 to 6 week timeline or by week one timeline is actually being like overly cautious. Now, I'm not downplaying the severity of the injury or anything like that, but when it comes to this time of year, you do get an opportunity to kind of slow play things because there isn't a game next week. You got there isn't a regular season game next week. You got about 2 to 3 weeks to kind of figure your things out. So I'll hold out that little shroud of hope that they're just being very cautious about the ramp up for Shakir. But again, if it's not that, and it really is truly just he is a high ankle sprain, it's running its normal course, and by week one, it'll be mostly okay. I don't like the idea of mostly okay being the primary slot receiver against a really talented Ravens secondary. And if there is a receiver that can replicate that role just for 1 week, I'll take it. I think that would be Curtis Samuel. But again, same thing. He's coming back from a hamstring injury. He's just getting ready to cut again. I mean, is he even effective by the time week one rolls around? Do you feel confident that Elijah Moore can maintain his health and be that person? That's what I'm looking out for. And it's why, again, I'm not, running for the hills over this as much as I'm just a little worried about total effectiveness week one. But for the safeties, I'm more worried. I mean, I'm probably right there with you on the day-to-day six rating, Bruce. But for the safety, I'm probably sitting there at a similar number, maybe a little higher, like 7. I believe in both players. I think Taylor Rapp has been an effective safety since since he became the starter, with not even just since he signed with them, but since he became the starter for the secondary. And Cole Bishop is a player that, again, the athletic mold, I'm a huge fan of. I think he's got plenty of juice, whether it's playing safety closer to the line, whether it's being one of the deep half guys. There's a lot to like about him. And I think he had flashes last year, but availability for him has been my biggest concern. And seeing him go down with a quad injury that sidelined him for 2 weeks in camp, that does not help me. Now that they're back on the field, I'm hoping that these next 3-ish weeks can be enough time for them to get everything down. But, there's a lot of communication. You basically are the generals of this defense. You're the generals of the secondary. You got to know every single coverage. You got to know every single call. You got to have perfect, pristine communication. And as Bills fans, we're spoiled. We got to watch Jordan Boyer and Micah Hyde do it so seamlessly in their prime that we kind of forgot how much it takes to get that kind of play out of someone. But it takes a hell of a lot. And Cole Bishop is a player who did not have the luxury to miss time, did not have the experience to miss time. I mean, it's not that you want to see anyone get hurt, but if Micah Hyde, had a quad strain and came back like 2 weeks before the season, you'd say, well, Micah Hyde's been in this defense for X amount of years. You feel good about it. Cole Bishop is not someone I feel good about that with, not yet. I'm hoping to be proven wrong. I'm hoping that despite the injuries, he goes out and has a tremendous performance, not even just week one, but for the regular season. But again, missing time, what is the effectiveness of him back on the field? Does he have enough time? Do you think the curve of difficulty for the safety position is a lot more than maybe the curve of difficulty for Shakir, who again has been here for a few years, coming back from his injury? And do you trust it week one? So those are the questions I have. Bruce, any final thoughts? Injury? Anything you didn't mention?
I think the curve. I think the curve. You're right on Cole Bishop. I think that it's different because of the time he missed last year versus Khalil Shakir, who's been around for a while and a little bit more of a veteran. But for me, it's about as long as nothing else goes wrong with Cole Bishop, I think he can still be on trajectory. I really feel like, I don't say strike 3, but I want to say it's one of those things where if something else happens and Cole Bishop misses a meaningful amount of time, we're going to be going into the year. I know this is insane to think about it. We're going to be going into the year where you have to make a decision on extending Cole Bishop, and we still wouldn't have seen Cole Bishop.
Right.
Like, that's insane to me.
Yeah.
I think the fact that you brought back DeMar Hamlin means you know what that floor looks like at safety. So at any given time, you can just say, okay, well, we're just going to go to the guy we had last year. Yeah, I know the ceiling isn't quite the player we probably want it to be. And that's the reason why you draft a player like Cole Bishop in the second round to get that ceiling. But
Yeah.
we'll see what looks like week one. And most importantly, I want to see where Cole Bishop is playing in the third preseason game.
Yeah.
If he's playing in the second half of the third preseason game, then I think DeMar Hamlin might be the starter week one.
You're 100% right. And, this kind of segues into the next topic, which is our preseason preview against the Bears, but also kind of a point that you made on your show that I firmly agree with. I will say we'll get to something on this list, but there's only one thing I didn't fully agree with. But as far as the who, what, or no, I'm not even going to try and recite it because to be honest with you, I will butcher it. If you want to say what the acronym stood for again, you can when I turn it back to you, but I will stutter and I will ruin it. So please don't make me do that. But when we're talking about the preseason game, I mean, if you're seeing Bishop that late in the game, I think it most likely means that he's lower on the depth chart, like you just alluded to. I also think it means that they need to get him experience. They need to get him hot live bullet reps. So I won't totally rule out the fact that it would mean that he's above DeMar, but I definitely don't think it would bode well if you're a fan who didn't want DeMar starting. I think that would tell you if he goes out there, plays, the second half, even like most of the second half, and either doesn't put on a show or even just has a subpar performance, I think you got to open yourself up to that idea that Hamlin will be the starter again until Bishop is fully ramped up and ready to go. But
yeah,
I want to just, you have any more thoughts, Bruce, before we go?
No, that's exactly the point right there. And it's the idea that if they feel that they need to get him reps so badly that they're willing to play him in the second half of the final preseason game, that's a red flag, right?
Yeah.
It's not a red flag for like him as a player moving forward, but it's a red flag for, okay, maybe he doesn't start week one. Not because he wasn't ahead on the depth chart. It's because he's not ready. And we needed to get him reps so badly that we exposed him to a preseason game to do it. So that would tell you prioritization.
A preseason game, and even though it's preseason and everything's super vanilla, I would have to imagine that there's going to be some sort of creativity from Ben Johnson, some sort of creativity when it comes to how he's running or some of the motion pieces he throws at people, even if it's super basic. It is something worth getting Cole Bishop, I guess, in the weeds on if he needs the experience, but we'll just have to see. But I want to get a little more into this matchup, specifically just players on our end that we're watching out for, because, the first game, we saw some flashes from some people. We saw some really nice performances from some players that I think are cementing themselves as roster options. I had a tweet this past week where I mentioned Reggie Gilliam being one. I mentioned Joe Andreessen, which didn't have a perfect game, but I thought he had some nice moments during that second half. I thought that TJ Sanders and Deion Walker alike both had some moments. TJ Sanders was stable and, plenty of pressure, plenty of juice. Deion Walker, again, I don't want to recite word for word what you said, Bruce, but really he had flashes and then it was kind of fine. But for me, that's kind of a world I'm more than willing to live in with Deion Walker in his first year. And then, Jordan Hancock was another player I really liked. I mean, these are guys that I think are going to make meaningful contributions to the team this year. And I'm really excited to watch them further. I have a few more, but Bruce, I want to turn it back to you. If it's any one of these guys or anyone we haven't mentioned, who are you really interested in watching in this preseason game just coming up?
It's Cam Lewis and Jordan Hancock. Those are the players that I want to see. And I thought it was interesting that Cam Lewis and Jordan Hancock both played almost exclusively safety, especially after Taron Johnson got banged up. When Taron Johnson got banged up, I was like, oh, one of them is going to play nickel, and that's going to tell us something, right?
Yeah.
Nope. To Corey Couch, baby. Like that. We're rolling out to Corey Couch. I'm like,
and
okay.
he's probably so hyped about that too.
So hyped, right? And so for me, I'm sitting there going, okay, they both played safety. That's kind of the weird competition where when you draft Jordan Hancock and you draft him the 5th round and you go, okay, this guy's a utility defensive back, you go immediately go, oh, Cam Lewis, are you in trouble? Like, is this a player we need to pay attention to? And then Cam Lewis comes out and he's the starter alongside DeMar Hamlin. So that means what? They think he's safety 4? Like, it was just I think that was the most shocking thing from the preseason game was having Cam Lewis and Jordan Hancock both play overwhelmingly safety and basically not nickel at all. So if that happens this upcoming week where they both play the majority of their time at safety, man, that's very different than what I thought it was going to look like. Or if they both play nickel, then it's like, okay, they're playing them off and on and they're kind of rotating and seeing, and okay, maybe they're competing for a similar role. But that's the thing I'm looking at probably more than anything. The second
Yeah.
thing is, does Mike White gets time with the starters? Because we've been talking about this the entire offseason, right? That the Bills can save X amount of dollars if they cut Mitch Trubisky. I mean, I think it's been reported on a gajillion times. Yes, we know, right? At this point, I've said it a gajillion times. I feel like I'm like the Charlie Brown teacher when I say it. It's like, wah, wah,
Hmm.
wah, 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 wah. And so I think that if you see Mike White get reps with the starters, then it's okay. It's a competition now. If Mitch Trubisky is the only one who gets reps with the starting offensive line, then it's like, okay, well, it's not really a competition right now. Trubisky's in the driver's seat and Mike White has to knock him out. Like that,
Yeah.
those are the two things that I know that sounds incredibly boring. Like, oh, hey, I'm looking at safety 4 and QB2, but those are the things I'm looking at for this preseason game.
Valid. QB2 battle. Even if people don't want to admit it, it's underrated. It's fun. I like looking at our backups. You got to know who's going to be taking the mantle. God forbid something happens to Josh Allen. You know what I mean? And you want to feel secure in that. Now, I'll never feel secure in that. I don't think anyone would. But who is the stopgap if it has to be that way? And I will be watching out for that. I am a fan of Mike White. I thought there were moments from him in his time with New York and his time with Miami where you could buy into this guy being your backup quarterback. I like that they went out of their way to go get him. I just don't know if he laps Trubisky if Trubisky's healthy. I just feel like Trubisky's been here a little bit longer, has more rapport with this offense, and I think has just a leg up on Mike White. And also, if you think about what Joe Brady might introduce to this offense a bit more of this year, which is more play action and more of the ability to get his quarterback moving around, whether it's bootlegs or just the freedom to kind of extend a play, I personally think Mitch Trubisky's better suited for that. And if you remember in the last game, there were a couple of moments. It was kind of ugly for really everyone, but there were a couple of moments where Trubisky made a really nice play when he got to roll out. And I'm okay with that being an option if it has to be, but I hope it's not at the same time. But I will be watching out for that. And when you talk about Jordan Hancock and Cam Lewis, I mean, Cam Lewis is the player I thought was going to be the odd man out this year. I thought when they took Hancock and I saw versatile DB in the 5th round who played at Ohio State, I'm like, oh, okay. So you basically just got your Cam Lewis upgrade. Like that's it. He's gone. But he's not going down without a fight. And I don't think he's going anywhere. And I think even more so what you just talked about with, they're going to be playing safety, but do you see him anywhere else? I have to wonder too, if one, the uncertainty with the health of Cole Bishop and Taylor Rapp has this team, has this defensive room kind of like, shit, man, we might just need to keep these guys at safety to just see if we can get good play from them in these preseason games and feel a little more comfortable if we have to turn these guys in a pinch because our starters are out, which is shaping up to be a very real possibility. Taylor Rapp and Cole Bishop have each missed time. And it leads you to wonder if we, because of these injuries and because of the uncertainty of what the tandem looks like with a ton of starting experience, do you feel like the best thing for this defense as a whole, even though Sean McDermott had said that he wants Hancock to learn a bunch of things, or at least indirectly said it, is to keep him at safety and to get him those reps at safety? So I think that is a good thing to be watching out for because it would tell you a lot about their security with the room right now. I mean, they know what they have in DeMar Hamlin, as you said before. Derek Forrest has been kind of like a guy that's there that they've trotted out, but we haven't really heard too much about him. And I'm interested if they get him a lot of reps. I'm sure they will. But really, what happens with those two versatile DBs? Are they boxed into that safety role? And what does it mean for your starters to have these guys that should be playing multiple positions, playing one because they're not confident in you staying healthy or staying on the field? So I'm watching out for that. There's one thing that when I said I disagreed with you on something, we were talking about Shavers and Moore. Now, assuming they're both good to go, because I know both were on the injury report, we'll see how they do. I like Elijah Moore, and I have said I think he's going to be an underrated part of this receiving core. But when I said underrated, not 1,000 yards, he is not the second coming of Stephon Diggs. No. I meant like a serviceable 300 to 400, maybe 5 if it really goes well for him. But what I will also say is there is a constant from last year, and it's happening this year, and it's Tyrell Shavers making plays. And again, injury had made a part of it, but getting reps with the ones, building rapport with Josh Allen, and shining. and making moments happen for himself when he has limited playing time and limited opportunities. And even though I know you said you think Moore might have a slight leg up right now, I personally think that even though Moore got his time and Moore, yes, if you want to talk about the same conversation we've had this episode, you would say that Moore probably has the back end of the room. I think Shavers has done more with this opportunity and, in my opinion, has the role above Moore. But I also wonder this, Bruce, and I'll turn it back to you. Do you think, kind of like what we're talking about with the uncertainty of the safety room and their health, but also with this wide receiver room facing consistent injury in camp? Shakir, again, what is he going to be when he comes back? Is he 100% right away? Curtis Samuel, same thing. Do you think because of the suspensions and some of the manipulation they're going to have to do with this final roster with some of the guys that they could put on IR or they have to wait 6 games for, is there a possibility that it's a 6 wide receiver room and that they actually get both of these guys involved? Or do you think maybe it's 5? I know it's a lot of questions at once, but I want to bring this back to you. I'm very interested to hear what you got to say about the receiving back end of the receiving room.
Yeah, I think there's a chance, but that 6 person is going to have to play teams. And
Yeah.
then you'd have to, I mean, you're going to activate 5 of those 6. And like, I can see it, but also remember when Sean McDermott was asked about Tyrell Shavers, it was, yeah, cool. Let's see what he can do on teams.
Right.
Like he added the caveat implying that Tyrell Shavers is not maybe a high level teams player, right? The implication there is that he might not be. And so when you think about Shavers and what you just said, hey, he makes the most of every opportunity. I don't disagree with that statement that he absolutely does, but he keeps getting opportunities at the back end of the roster.
Yeah.
Like that's the way. So let's say, for example, that Mike White comes out and plays markedly better than Mitchell Trubisky. I know this is going to sound strange when I say it. It doesn't matter because Trubisky started ahead of Mike White. The fact that Mike White played better in those few snaps doesn't really matter. If the next time you see Mike White, he's getting reps with the starters, then guess what? Now it mattered.
Right.
But the order tells us way more than the quality of play. This is where the Wario acronym, right? It stands for this, just for, because you called out. Where, when, and with whom results, insights, and observations. Wario. WWAWWRIO. Where, when, and with whom results, insights, and observations. And these are the things that matter. It's where, when, and with whom you play. And so I agree that Tyrell Shavers has consistently made plays, specifically in the preseason when he's given his opportunity. But he's consistently giving his opportunities at the end of games.
Yeah.
Like that's when he's getting the opportunities. And that's what tells us something. It's not that he made plays. It's when did he have the opportunity to make plays? And it's always the end of the game, which means he's at the bottom. So when Elijah Moore is playing in the fourth quarter and Tyrell Shavers has already shipped out and he's done for the day and he was done in the first half, then I'll buy it at that point. Like then I'll be like, okay, guys, quick, pull the red phone, hit the alarm. Do you remember the conversation around Zach Davidson last offseason?
Oh yeah.
And whether or not he was going to be TE3.
And funny enough, I didn't think he was. I didn't think he was.
At the end of the first game, I did a podcast and said, no, he's not in competition because Quentin Morris got time with the starters in place of people who were injured before and then came off the field in the first quarter and Zach Davidson was still on the field on the last snap of the game. And I was like, there is no competition for TE3. It's not happening. I'm sorry, because it doesn't matter how Zach Davidson played. He was playing at the very end and Quentin Morris left after drive 3. It's like, okay, it's clearly not a competition. And sure enough, that's what happened. I feel the same way about this.
I get it completely. And I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because, again, like what I just said for Mike White before, like I agreed that I think Mitch Trubisky has the leg up. And I also think that when you're watching it, if Mitch Trubisky gets those roles with the starters again, then he's probably the QB too. I think for me, why I feel like this is slightly different is just because, and I didn't mention this earlier, so I probably should have made the point then too. I feel like when you, and this isn't a lock by any stretch of the imagination, and there's a very realistic possibility that Moore is your wide receiver 5. I mean, my early expectation was he was by default, and there wasn't really a competition. But I just feel like given Shavers, again, even despite the lack of special teams ability, the consistent rapport he has gotten with the ones, even in this preseason game, and even with Sean McDermott's comments, I feel like that paired with the experience he has in the room and the skill set he can bring, and with an uncertainty that does happen with this offense when you talk about what the receiving core looks like right now in a swath of injuries that we don't know the severity as far as long-term impact for a few players. I think that there is a realistic chance, not saying you're not saying it's realistic, but more so like there is a possibility that he is going to be able to cement himself a roster spot, that we can see him as the 6 if they go for 6, but even possibly as the 5. And that will be telling for sure. But I don't think it's a very, just from my personal opinion, a very wide apart race. And we could disagree on this. It's fine. Don't hate me forever, Bruce. Please. But no, I don't think it's a very far apart competition. I think Tyrell Shavers has a very good chance to make the final part of this roster, even despite everything we've discussed, even if it does seem a little ass backwards relative to what we just talked about. There's just something about the way he plays. There's something about his experience, and there's something about the fact that it's been consistent that I feel like at some point the well will break and he is going to get his opportunity. And if I'm wrong, I never said anything. This episode will be deleted immediately. Moving on. Moving on.
I'll tell you what, though, if Tyrell Shavers plays equal or ahead of Elijah Moore, man, you and I are going to message each other. Also,
Okay.
like, there's your boy. We did it.
Yeah.
We did the thing.
I feel like
and
a
I'm gonna
proud,
have
a
to talk
proud
about,
parent.
I'll talk about it next week on the show. I'll be like, danger alert. Will Robinson, danger. Tyrell Shavers has passed Elijah Moore.
Bruce, I do a thing, and I don't know why I do it. Maybe I just root for the underdog, or maybe it's just because I pick really random players to champion, but that's exactly it. I pick really random players to champion, and it hasn't paid off the way I'd hoped for it. Like this year's draft darling for me has been Jackson Hawes. Now, I'm very realistic about what I expect out of Jackson Hawes, which is really just blocking with occasional receiving chops, but like I love this player, and I think he's going to be a menace as a blocker. But like Dwayne Carter last year, and now Tyrell Shavers talking about this receiving battle, my track record needs to improve, Bruce. I got to get better at this because so far it hasn't panned out the way I had hoped, and I'm upset. But hey, we got plenty of time. Maybe it comes to fruition. And I did want to talk about, on the topic of DL, just to wrap this show up, players you mentioned, players that have been covered on this network, but TJ Sanders, Deion Walker, and I did throw in Dwayne Carter on this list only because, I mean, I just want to see, again, for a position that is very, very questionable, a position that's very, very unproven outside of your starting interior guys, Daquan Jones and Oliver. I mean, with the suspension to Ogunjobi too, so you lose that interior presence. You're looking at guys like Sanders, Walker, Dwayne Carter being not only contributors, but like guys that have to get reps in and have to perform to keep this thing afloat on the interior. So what are you looking out for from these specific players? I mean, what do you think at the very least? Like, what's your confidence level, or if we want to talk about it, paranoia level with this room right now, given those factors?
You broke up just a quick bit. You're talking about the defensive tackles, right?
Yes. I apologize. I didn't know where I cut off.
No, I think it's my headset. It's not you. So okay. First off, I know that Hoyt is a technically listed as an edge rusher. He's a versatile player,
Right.
but I do want to point out, I thought he had a really nice game. Like I do think that Hoyt, coming in from the Rams, is kind of this enigma. It's what is he going to play? Sometimes the Bills will take these players and they look so versatile, right? And you're like, oh man, it's incredibly versatile. And then the versatility just never pans out. And what it means is they're not really good at anything, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think that's the case with Hoyt. So I just want to point that out real fast. When it comes to defensive tackles, we mentioned the Deion Walker conversation and how I do think the Jordan Phillips comps are really like legitimate. Like I do think that's legitimate. I really do. I thought TJ Walker was really good. I thought sorry, TJ Sanders. I just said Deion Walker and TJ Walker.
They merged into one.
They merged into one person. I thought TJ Sanders was really, really good. Seriously. I thought that just because you're bigger doesn't mean you play the run better.
Right.
And that's a big conversation around TJ Sanders. Everybody assumes because he's 290 something that he can't play the run really well. And that's not true. Playing the run is about leverage. It's about lower body strength. It's about anchor. It's about hand placement. And so for me, watching TJ Sanders against the run was actually very encouraging because we all know he can rush the passer, and that's great. Can I put him next to Ed Oliver? That's the question. It's, can I put him next? I know we can put him in place of Ed Oliver. That's great. But if I want my most talented players on the team, can I put him next to Ed Oliver? And I think the answer to that question is yes. So my biggest takeaway from the defensive tackle room is that TJ Sanders might not eat into Ed Oliver's time. He might eat into Daquan Jones's time. And if that's the case, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a really good thing. And so being able to solidify yourself as a force against the run so that you don't just show up in NASCAR packages that are 3rd and long. You can show up on 2nd and 5.
Yeah.
Like, that's an appropriate place to put TJ Sanders. That's a big deal. And for me, that's one of the, okay, I mentioned the where, when, and with whom, right? Where is he playing? Is he playing at the nose? Like, are they going to play him at 1 tech? Or are they exclusively going to play him when he's outside the guard's outside shoulder? You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
for me, that's one of my big takeaways from the defensive tackle.
Yeah, and TJ Sanders, again, I'll rehash this because I've said it on the show a couple times, over the past few weeks. When the Bills made the pick in the 2nd round, I fully thought that it was going to be, and I drank the Kool-Aid. I thought they were going to draft Alfred Collins when they traded up. I thought that they wanted to get a true plugger in the interior, get a big boy, like a true proven run stuffer, even if he doesn't have the pass rush chops, let the guy just eat up space, because there was very heavy illusion, or at the very least, it was kind of revealed by Tyreek Williams that the Bills were going to take him indirectly. So I was like, well, if they were going to take him and he's a 2-gapping run stuffer, Alfred Collins felt like that guy to me. Then they took TJ Sanders, and I was like, oh, okay, so I'm just going to, all right. And I was
I guess I just don't know anything about anything, do I?
I don't, like, I'm clueless. I mean, that's also true. I don't know anything about anything. However, I especially don't know anything about anything to Brandon Beane's mind. But I guess it's almost like when you do like a dynasty draft and you say, man, I really need a running back. It makes the most sense. And then you just take the receiver anyways. In this case, it's profile of defensive tackle. And TJ Sanders, we've talked about this enough times. He fits their mold. He's the Bills 1 tech in the fact that he's basically just, more of a 3 tech, but he's good enough with the way he plays at, the weight he plays at, the frame he has, to still maintain the role and assignment of, more expanded position on the front. Now, I'm not saying trot him out as a nose tackle right away, but watching him in that game, he was disruptive. Beyond just the pass rush juice, being able to get under the pads and just really skew the line, skew the front, and be able to muddy lanes up and make it more difficult. Like, that's very encouraging to see from him. And I wonder if, if they do decide to do that with TJ Sanders in this game and get him straight up on the center, get him straight up as a 1, or if he's just more of a 3 again, but it still works and they just want to play into that. And then what that means for the upcoming season, where you have Ed Oliver in front of you, and whether it's just we're going to start him out as a rotation for Ed Oliver to keep the juice coming from that side and see if Daquan Jones can hold his own with Carter in that rotation, or is Sanders sound enough to hold his own as a Daquan Jones successor, and instead he's the immediate replacement. And then for Ed Oliver, your replacement for him, eventually Ogunjobi, but maybe even Deion Walker as the 3. And yes, Deion Walker, he's a big body, but Deion Walker can rush the passer. Deion Walker has power. If you're asking him to essentially rush against one guy and just create disruption and push and get your arms up, and that can work, like, I'm cool with that. He doesn't need to be that immediate 1 tech if you have that guy in front of him. And it would just be so beautifully on brand for the Buffalo Bills to find the guy they've needed at completely inverse frames. Like, oh, here's this 6'6" mammoth of a human being that's over 330 pounds. That's our 3. And he just rushes the passer. But the 297, 6'3" guy, oh, no, that's the 1. He's good. And like, it would still be fine as long as it works. And the Bills, from a philosophical approach to their defense, numerous times have said, it's not about your frame, it's how you play. Everyone's a shadow to us. They said this about their linebackers, and I'd imagine the same philosophy bleeds into their defensive line. And it's why I'm now pretty bullish on TJ Sanders, even though he isn't your more conventional guy. Seeing what he's been doing in practice, training camp, and now subsequently the preseason, if he has a good showing against Chicago, I think this is a player that fans can really buy into as becoming someone that not only contributes, but actually takes a very significant role very quickly. And maybe even changes the complexion of how you feel about the interior. But that's getting very optimistic here. And lastly, I just want to briefly talk about Dwayne Carter, because again, I haven't quit on you, Dwayne, and I will not. I go down with the ship. If you sink, I sink. We're in this together. I just need to see something. I need to see disruption. I need to see something that gives me any inclination that he can handle his assigned role. They drafted him last year. They really put him in that position early on. It didn't work out right away. He was kind of thrown into the fire a bit. Then he gets hurt and he comes back and he's essentially a game day inactive. Show us something. Show us that you can handle your own against the run, that you're not going to get washed out or pushed around. Show us that you can create disruption consistently. Show us something. That's all I ask. But if it's too much to ask, it's unfortunate, because I really like the player. He seems like an awesome human. And I just want to buy into someone who actually ends up being awesome. And I still think he can. I haven't quit on him. But Bruce, final thoughts on this interior group or anyone else you want to point out before we sign off for the evening?
I'm worried about Dwayne Carter. I was high on him coming out of college. I was like, man, I love this guy in the third, and then the draft in the third. And I was not thrilled
Yeah.
about the play his first year, and I'm worried. There's no question. Now, again, how many players have we seen start to get better at the end of their second year and then they turn on year three, right? So
Yeah.
to say that I don't think you should quit on him either. I don't think anyone should quit on him right now. I think the sample size would say don't, but I don't see the trend in a positive way. That's my concern. It's
Yeah.
not that I don't think he's playing at a high level. It's that I don't I don't see the gradual increase that you'd like to see from younger players who are eventually going to peak in year three. And so for me, I know that you don't want to quit him. I don't want to quit him either, but I'm worried. Like,
Yeah.
I don't say I'm taking a victory lap on Keon Coleman and everything, because Keon Coleman was perfectly fine his rookie year, in my opinion. He wasn't Lad McConkey, right? So I'm taking a victory lap on Lad McConkey being awesome for sure.
Oh,
But
yeah. I love Lad.
he's very, very good, and I'm feeling pretty good about my call there. But I'll tell you what, I'm feeling pretty bad about my call when it comes to Dwayne Carter right now. And so I need to see more. And I think by the time this year is over, I need to at least see a trajectory moving in an upward
Yeah.
position. And if not, I mean, you've seen players who gotten their best versions of themselves year three, but those don't usually come after 2 years of
Nothing.
not good.
Yeah.
So I'm keeping an eye on it. When they told me he was going to be more of a one tech this year, my eyebrows raised
Yeah.
because I didn't think that was his best path to victory. And we're just going to see.
Yeah. When he came into the league, I was very optimistic that he could do it. I don't think right now he can consistently. But what I would say can help him really is if one of these other players does actually take a quick ascension. Now, that's asking a lot, I get it. But let's just say this bullish conversation we're having about TJ Sanders ends up leading into the regular season where he is that guy very quickly. And you don't like if essentially you're talking about TJ Sanders being that primary Daquan Jones inheritor, then maybe it helps Dwayne Carter. Now, I'm not saying he was great at 3 either, but I think given what he is panning out to be in the league, maybe it's better to limit him to that one role and feeling good about it because you have a guy who can take on Daquan Jones's role more consistently means that that one dimensional, if you want to call it, role for Carter helps him become a consummate pro and a good rotational rusher or run defender in that spot. That's the bright side talking. I don't know if it's going to get there, but we got to see more. It's just you took him in the third round. There was a lot you liked about him when he came out of Duke. I thought, he played with I don't want to say it's wrong to say play with a lot more confidence, but also like you come into the league and you don't have a great showing right away and it's very different. And that might mess with your psyche a little bit. But when you saw like that season at Duke, team captain, where he's just a menace on the line, I'm like, I think they got something here. I don't think that went away. I wonder if there's just something more of like a mental hurdle. And I wonder if this position change for him isn't the best answer to get him to play his best in the pros. And hopefully, if it takes someone like a TJ Sanders or a Deion Walker becoming that guy to get him there, I won't be mad at it. But yeah, I mean, we're in alignment on this. We want to see more from him. Don't want to quit him yet, but there's got to be something. And I hope it happens for him because, again, he seems like just an awesome dude. I root for good people. And like by every account, he seems like the coolest guy on planet Earth. So why wouldn't you want someone like that to just be an awesome player? Like there's nothing to not like about Dwayne Carter. Fun fact, his father-in-law actually tuned into one of these episodes like, I think it was like last year after we drafted him. And I was like, holy crap, that's so cool. Like, just seems like a good dude with a good family. Like, I'm rooting for the guy. So I don't really
think that
have.
was incredibly well stated. I have nothing else to add.
I appreciate that. Bruce, do you have anything else you want to add just for any of these topics? Not even just this conversation about the Bears, but any final sayings before we call it a night?
No, I'm good, man. Looking forward to it. I think we're having different conversations this year than we have historically had. And I think that's kind of cool. The fact that we're talking about safety 4, I think it's pretty neat. And I think it's probably a good team. And I think the Bills are going to be good. And I think we should probably just relax and have a good time.
Yeah. Listen, it feels like the sky's falling, and I get it for a lot of people because yes, the same thing happened last year that happened the year prior and the year prior and the year prior. it's not the result you want, but this is still a very, very good football team. This is still a team that's going to win a lot of games. This is still a team that you're going to tune in to watch every Sunday or Saturday sometimes or Thursday sometimes, but really every week and expect great play from because that's become the standard and we're lucky to have it. We want to get over the hump. And when we major in the minors, it's just because we care enough about the team that we can see these cracks and hope that they can patch them to get to that next level. I'm hoping for the same, but we got to remember to have fun with it. And I think we're going to have plenty of fun this year. And just one final thing, like, because I know we talked about him very briefly, but I want to keep just giving him some flowers. I really like Jordan Hancock. Like, I really like the player. I'm very excited to see what he does for the rest of preseason. I hope he makes the active roster. And honestly, even if it's just in that safety role, I see the potential for him because he just seems like a smart, sound player, someone that I think would give you a high floor. And they need that right now in their safety room. So I just had to throw that out there. But Bruce, I mean, you're the man. I can't say it enough times. You're one of my favorite guests to get on this show. There is no blue ethereal floating orb like you. You're a one of a kind. Appreciate the heck out of you and all the insight you bring. I mean, what do you got going on, dude? I think the people know, but some people might not know, and they want to know things too. So what do those people who don't know want to know about you?
I have literally nothing going on. I'm the most boring man on the planet. You can find me at the exact same spot every single Thursday for the last, gosh, we're coming up on 6 years now, Joe. I've been dropping shows on Thursdays
Wow.
for 6 years now. I mean, at this point, anyone who's going to listen has already listened at this point. I've lost more listeners than I could possibly count at this point because I've done something crazy like, I don't know, say that we shouldn't re-sign Jordan Phillips and then have him yell at me on social media, or I did a musical episode, Oh yeah, that was before your time, man. I wrote an article for Buffalo Rumblings. Great story. Wrote an article for Buffalo Rumblings when Shaq Lawson and Jordan Phillips were ready to be free agents. And the article was an opinion piece. And I said, I wouldn't re-sign Jordan Phillips to the deal I think he's going to get. I think he's going to get $10 million a year. And I don't think they should pay it. I don't think that the type of player that he is going to give you $10 million. I think Ed Oliver's your better player right now. I think he's also your future, all this stuff like this, right? Jordan Phillips himself responded to that on social media and didn't love it. And so then, of course, everybody, because it's social media, right? Everybody responds to Jordan Phillips' comments, goes, "Oh, we love you, Jordan. Don't pay attention to that guy. Yeah. He's a loser, blah, blah." And I muted every single one of them. Of course, hundreds of people.
Pineapple.
Right? Yeah. To this day, they're all like, why doesn't Bruce ever respond to me? Oh, remember back in 2019? Bruce remembers.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a fun time because I was still fairly new at this time. I think I started doing this in I think was it October of 18, I think, is when I started doing this. So that was just a few months after it was March of 19 probably is when this happened. So, yep, I didn't know you didn't know that story, but there you go. There's a story.
I've never known. I mean, I don't even know how I'd react in that situation. And I try to be pretty careful about how I speak about players because and not saying you weren't not to take it that way, but more so I'm a big believer, I'm just talking about what I'm seeing as, again, someone who just watches the team, which is a limited perspective. And I'm very careful about any way I construct criticism about a player because I never want it to be taken to a level of personal, where someone thinks I'm attacking them because it's never that. If it's up to me, man, I want every player to be good. If I doubt you, I want to be proven wrong. Make me look like an idiot. But there are cases to be made. I've openly said on here, I didn't want to pay James Cook $15 million. And I'm sure he wouldn't have liked that, but they didn't. So, I mean, it ended up working out, but you brave through it, Bruce, and you still give us tremendous content. I have said I've listened to your show many times, and if you guys haven't, please, please, please check out the Bruce exclusive. It is one of the most unique shows we have in our space. It's not like anything else you hear in the Buffalo Bills content creation community. He does just exceptional work and just brings you insight that is incredibly valuable, but in a way that you can't put the phone or the podcasting platform down when you're listening to it, and I can attest for that. And he does a mean Wario impression, right, Bruce? I think you said you do a really good one. Is it too late? It's okay if it's too late.
No, it's not too late. You want to do it?
I want to. I'll let you go first. If you need me to do one with you, I'll do it with you.
You go first, and then I'll go.
Okay. All right.
All right. Here we go.
Wario.
Okay, that's not bad. That's
probably
not bad
just
at all.
Ruined someone's eardrums. I'm so
here
sorry.
we go. I'm gonna try mine. Ready? I'm a Wario. I'm gonna win.
All right. Oh my God, it's so good. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate that. I put you on the spot for that one, but you're
Yeah,
a
no
trooper,
problem.
Bruce. Thank you so much for being here again. To all of you who have who have tuned into this week's episode, I appreciate the heck out of each and every one of you. If you are a fan of the network but haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, feel free to do so now. And while you're there, check the description of this video for the sign up for the One Pass. That is the lifeblood of the network. It gives you access to our premium Discord channel and some other amazing perks that you can get for just $60 a year. I promise you it is worth your time. You interact directly with the content creators and an access to a myriad of different channels, including some of our film channels and some of our Bills discussions. It's very, very, very worth your time. So check that out. Check out the rest of the content we have on the network. The Air Raid guys are crushing it. Ant and Eric on the Film Room, Ant with Disguised Coverage, and Greg and Aaron on the Cover One Buffalo podcast. These guys are crushing it every single day. And again, just it's awesome to be a part of a network. And I'm very excited to really ramp things up as the season gets going here. And let's see what happens this weekend, Bruce, because we'll have a lot to talk about next week. But that's next week. For this week, I say thank you. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, friends, go Bills. We'll see you soon.